Hello and welcome to Cannabis Marketing Live, all puff, no fluff. I'm your host, Kendra Losi, and today we're talking about personal branding. Do you have a brand that you can say about yourself? Do you have that personal brand that can help you reach more people and create those connections? Luckily, we have our fabulous guest, Brandon Birkmeyer, here today from Brands on Brands on Brands on Brands. And Brandon's going to be talking to us about how to create a strong personal brand, how to scale it, how to grow it, why you need a personal brand, and all the other things that are related to that. Brandon, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Happy to be here. And just the beauty of live is, and since we're friends, you can
Yep.
joke about this, but Birkmeyer and is the last name instead of Birkheimer.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay, but this is why, like for me, a last name like that's difficult, and so building a personal brand was important for me. I just tell people like, call me Brandon Brands because it's
Yep.
easy to remember, or talk about my show, Brands on Brands on Brands, because like literally, like I'm the person that shakes a hand. I'm like, I just forgot what their name is. So this is what we're talking about today. Why this is important.
Absolutely. And as someone, I was just saying today that my last name defaults to spell check to loser. So
Oh,
I'm super careful about last names. So I'm so sorry I pronounced it wrong.
no, I've done it to you too. I'm sure I've said Losi once and Lucy the other time, and like I'm sure I've done it many times.
It happens. It happens. If you guys are just joining us, we're talking about personal branding and the importance of last names and getting it right. But Brandon is here because he has extensive experience. He's a seasoned marketing strategist, an up and coming writer, author, speaker, podcaster, and business coach. And if you guys haven't had a chance to check out his podcast, Brands on Brands on Brands,
Yes,
which is on his hat.
it's funny.
You, it's awesome. I love it. It's so creative and clever. You guys have to check it out. It's one of the top 100 marketing podcasts, and unlike some of those others, it's actually really good. So,
Thanks. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I say top 100 because I think those charts they go up and they go down. I've hit 21. It's
mm,
like as high as I've gotten, but it's like I just like top 100. It's not. I don't have to feel like I'm faking it. Like yeah, I basically interview the people that are our friends, like the people that are speaking at the marketing conferences, that are writing the marketing books. Like, give me your expert knowledge and let me help share that in a simple way with our friends that are listening. So yeah, that's what I love doing right now.
absolutely. And speaking of our friends that are listening, Evie's, our pal Evie
What's
is here.
up?
Ask Evie's here and saying brand in the house, and she has her personal brand. She loves it. But let's talk to those of you that don't have a personal brand or that are wondering why you need one. So, Brandon, what does personal brand mean to you?
I've done multiple episodes on this, so like my answer tends to change every week.
Perfect.
So forgive me for that. But no, what I like to say at the beginning of it all is branding is just your reputation, and I like to think of it as a human. So like when I go somewhere, anywhere, and I meet people, there's going to be people that don't know me that are across the room that they're going to be seeing. They might see me and say, okay, based on just how he looks, this is what I assume about him.
Hmm.
And then they might talk to someone at the party and be like, okay, this is based on what we're having a conversation about and what they said. They have a new image of me. And then they meet me and they experience, our conversation and it changes again. So I do think it's kind of living and growing, but basically it's your reputation and how you kind of craft it and change it. And it's going to be different to everyone. Like my brand to Kendra is going to be different than my brand to someone who's never met me. So for me, my job is to make sure that I'm continuing to put my best foot forward in terms of who I am, but that by the end of it, you have a sense of like, what is Brandon known for? Like,
Yep.
what is his reputation around like a singular item that you're like, by the end of this, he's that brand guy. He's the guy that talks about branding and how to do it for yourself. Like, so that's kind of how I think about it.
It's even his name.
It's convenient, right?
That helps so much. Yeah, I love it. I think that it's really important, and it's something that when I'm teaching at, in a classroom or working with clients, the importance of creating a personal brand is so key, because a lot of times, whether or not people often think it's just for job searching, or that on the flip side, it's for those entrepreneurs, the Gary V's, or some of the other people in our industries. That's what that those are the people that personal branding is for.
Yeah. I used to think that, and honestly, when I started, I was in corporate for 18 years at ad agencies, working on Fortune 100 companies, Coca-Cola, Walmart, and I never thought about my brand. I just
Right.
thought I have this awesome resume, I have big names, like I'm good, I'm set.
Yep.
But you do that long enough and you start to get to that point where you're a little too old or a little paid too much to like they're going
Yep.
to start to try to replace you. And I realized I don't have a reputation. I've
Yep.
never done anything outside of my resume. So I started with that road. But then as I did the work, I realized, my God, the networking opportunities are crazy. The growth and business opportunities are crazy when you actually invest in yourself and people start to know you as whatever it is that you do. And I help businesses figure that out for themselves too now.
I love it. And you guys in the cannabis and CBD space, one of the things that this is really important, which is part of why I asked Brandon to come on the show, is that because we're so limited in the terms of the advertising and the messaging and the marketing that we can do, adding a personal brand has so many different benefits, but it also gives us another way to reach and connect with our customers. So you can create that emotional connection. You can put that face and humanize your brand. There's so many different things that you can use. So keep that in mind as Brandon and I have this conversation, because that is one of the key reasons why it's so important, above and beyond the other things that Brandon's been talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, if I can
yeah,
jump in,
yeah,
I was helping a vape pen company like build their brand from scratch, their marketing materials, their like what they're known for, their print brand positioning. And obviously there's a lot of limitations in what you can advertise. I don't have the benefits of like all the tools a regular entrepreneur gets to use.
right.
And one of the things we kept talking about was trying to figure out like beyond saying that we are a good product, like what else is there? Because at the end of the day, the customer is like, it all kinds of seems the same to me.
Yep.
So it's hard for you to prove that. And one of the things that like we try to tap into is like, okay, how do you build our brand? And then how do we associate with people or influencers that have their own brand and get that association and build that credibility through branding. And if you can't, it takes a long time to build it for yourself, but you start with using other people's. And then you can build it for yourself too, longer term. It's a slower process, I'll give you that. But if you invest in it, that's what sticks.
And it's absolutely, it helps you if you change jobs, or if you go here, or if you're creating your own company. It helps you with all of those different things. One of the things that we talked about before we went live was how to become an authority using a simple personal branding framework. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, exactly. And for me, when people try to ask, like, what is it that we can do to start?
Right.
And even like when you have a product and you're like, well, what are we good at? I think what you have to do is start creating content first. Like, okay, let's put as much out to tell our story, to talk about what we're good at, and share the experiences of our customers. And even as a personal brand, that's what you do for yourself. You share your opinions, you share your history, your experience, and you try to give advice and recommendations, whatever that might be. So it's the same model for people as it is for products. But at the end of the day, for me, the model is you start with content because your content helps you hone your message.
Yep.
And then the next two steps in the model have to do with building community, like taking your message and gathering people around it and engaging with them. And then the third piece of it is finding ways to serve them beyond what you're doing now. So it's like, okay, what is the impact I can have in their life? So it's message, community, and impact. Those are the three stages. And you kind of, along the way, you're learning and adapting and making that better.
I love that so much, and especially for an industry like ours where community is so important. But I even want to step back because a lot of times when I did the same thing, right? I worked at agencies and companies back and forth between in-house and agencies. And during that time, I managed to get laid off 6 times. So you would think I would have been better at creating my personal brand, but instead I just kept going forward and trying to find the best thing that I could do to make the biggest difference. So when I finally got laid off the last time, it was like starting not from scratch because I already had a network. But it's more than just having a resume on LinkedIn. What kind of content do you recommend that people are creating if they're just getting started?
Yeah, exactly. For me, the kind of content I mean, it's different for everybody, but it's got to like start with what is your industry. Like I start broad first. So
Right.
for me, it was branding and marketing. Okay, I'm going to be in the space of branding and marketing. I'm going to build a show around it. And I had to figure out, okay, well, if I had to design something that only I could do. What's the next level deeper, and how does it tie to something I'm passionate about, something I'm curious about? And a friend of mine, Mike Kim, is a personal branding expert, and what he talks about too is like he has these questions that I loved, which helped me, which was what pisses you off, what uh, breaks your heart, and what change do you want to see in the world? So
Oh, those
figure
are good questions.
and if you can answer some of those questions, and it could be any of them, but what you find is there's something that you bring to the table that is uniquely you. And for me, it was, in the branding and marketing space, I like my mantra is like build brands that matter, because I've seen it over and over again. Like if you don't, you're just like people don't care like which toothpaste they buy. Like it's a race to the bottom in terms of price. So at the end of the day, if you don't want to be beaten out by price, you've got to do something else so that people actually care about you. And this is the same for people. Like me as my personal brand, I'm like, what do? I do all the things that take an extra step. Like you might have heard me, but like if I can connect with you one on one and have a call with you, I'm going to do that as much as possible. Even to where like I have too many people to talk to, I'm going to still do that, because at the end of the day, it's that personal connection that matters. And so that's my next level deeper, is build brands that matter.
I love it. I love it so much. And while you were talking, I actually was thinking about, A, your words, but B, I was also thinking about like how in an industry, so if we take cannabis and CBD, right? Like you mentioned vape pens, and from the outside perspective, new consumers coming in don't know one from the other, right? So how do you stand out and take what that is and make it uniquely yours? And while you were talking, this was, I think it's really funny, but you guys, right before we started, Brandon and I realized we have the exact same bookcase. But even though we're both marketers, and even though we both have the same bookcase, we both made it uniquely ours, right? There's certain things in it that portray our different personalities. And even though they both have marketing books on them even, it's still just like such a symbol of like how you can take something, make it yours, change it around, even though you're starting from the same thing. And I think that goes back into how you can differentiate your brand, but also yourself.
Yeah, and I think what it is a little bit of reflection about like if you actually just think about the things you're already doing,
Mm-hmm.
it tends to illuminate itself. Maybe you have to talk to someone about it because maybe you can't see it for yourself. But at the end of the day, you might be a little too close to it. But it's there already. You don't have to invent it. You don't have to
Right.
invent something. It's already That's the beauty of the personal brand. It's already there in you. You already have your personality, your core beliefs, the things that make you you. So it's already there, just one level deeper in the surface. I'll give you an example. I was helping a fitness coach, and for her, it's like they all. I mean, how many fitness coach shows are there? I was helping her build her podcast. At the end of the day, I said, well, for you, like, tell me actually how you do what you do. And she explained it just like you would explain it to your customers or whatever it is. And as she got into the details, like, well, it sounds like all the things you're doing are about longevity. And it's like the anti CrossFit. It was, how do you do something that doesn't break your body down? It keeps you sustaining so you're not like hurt when you're like 40, 50, 60 years old. So like that's your brand. It's this longevity, like a more wholesome approach to,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so everyone's got that level deeper. Just figuring out what that little thing is that makes you you is the next step.
So that's like the very pre-step, basically, step zero before you go into content.
Well, I'd say actually no. I'd say creating content step one, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and because at the end of the day, you can't find your voice unless you're using it.
That's
We
true.
try too hard to do strategy ahead of time and to like design everything out. It's by the action of like taking action that you will figure it out. You'll like look back and say, man, there was this pattern. Like I tended to do these things over and over again.
It's absolutely true. And it's one of those things where as you're starting to do the writing, as you're starting to do the podcasting or videos or what have you, it does come out. And I think it's always fascinating to see how that works. I personally just finally launched my own little newsletter, right? Your weekly hit of marketing. And it's as I'm starting to do that, I can feel my voice coming out. And I've taken a million writing classes, and it's still like now it's mine. I can make it mine, not just an assignment or what have you. Um, Talk to me a little bit about podcasting. You're the second guest I've had on this year talking about podcasting. It's so important. We're all sitting around trying to watch Netflix or avoid Netflix and try and do something better for ours. What drew you to podcasting?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, for me, I was trying a lot of things. I was at the time working at a corporate ad agency, and I was struggling to figure out what do I do to be more than a resume?
Yeah.
Because honestly, after doing it 18 years, the jobs were getting harder and harder to find. And I had bosses and mentors that were like out of work and freelancing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I need something that's reputation building. So I tried blogging, I tried doing videos and lives, and I tried podcasting. And it was the thing that like it didn't stress me out. Like I could turn the computer on. I just had something in my head I wanted to get out, and I just started talking. And that practice and that ease of use became like something I could do consistently. So for me, it's the easiest way to create content. It's an engine for me to find my voice. And then I can use it and push it to other places. I can cut it up into bits and put it on social media. I can record a call like this and have an editor make it pretty for YouTube. And eventually I can do this stuff as video first, but I had to find my voice first, and it was the least intimidating of them all, to be honest. I'm like, give me the easy route, please. I'll take it.
I want to be hidden.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it. I started with video because I was teaching online. And then I created a course for social media for women entrepreneurs. And I think in that like 2 months of running the course and teaching at a university and creating videos for the course and the live Q&A, I think I counted, I did like 37 videos in 2 months or something. So I was like, all right, I may as well just start doing live video then.
And here's a great thing, honestly, if you take the step before you start doing live and just record some of this stuff, podcast, video, whatever it is, you don't have to release it.
Yep.
You can literally bury it and never see it again. But in doing it again, you'll find your voice. So for me, like, it was important to be able to do those things over and over again. And that's what I tell people, like, just like, what's step one? What equipment? I'm like, dude, just hit record.
Yep.
And do it 5 times. And if in that 5 times you feel like you feel that fire starting to burn in you, you know you're on the right track.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things, I can't tell you how many videos I recorded and deleted or tucked away for later.
Yeah.
But it's also like, if you look at, it's always easy to say, okay, look at what they're doing. I can never do that, right? I think that we naturally don't look back at where someone started. We compare ourselves not starting to where they are today.
Right. No, exactly. I think that's exactly what we do. And for me, I actually recorded 30 solo episodes, just talk. And I was putting them out there and being judgmental of myself, but I did it until I realized this is what I want to do, because I was still doing blogging, whatever else. I was like, no, this is the thing. So you know what I did? I said, you know what? I now want to get really good at it because this is my thing. So I hired a coach. I like found someone that I was like, I like how they are doing it.
Yep.
And I called him, like, do you coach? Can I learn from you? Because like they're much younger than me, but I was like, at the end of the day, they had these amazing guests and they had this momentum. Like, how do you do what you do? So I recommend that if you resonate with someone and you see that they're doing something you want to do, find someone that can coach you in your industry and like help you, once you're comfortable, take that next step.
I love it. I think that's so important. And it's something that when you look at the different ways you can do it, once again, it's easy to get stuck in yourself, and it's easy to like, oh, I don't like my voice. Oh, I don't like how I show up on camera. Writing's hard. Whatever that thing is that's in your head, I think that a lot of times you can find those coaches or those mentors that'll help pull you out of that and just keep pushing you forward. It's just, it's so fascinating. 30 episodes is a lot, by the way.
And then I scrapped them. I had started over.
30 episodes is a lot. That's awesome. I just used live students as my starting point.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that too.
Here's the curriculum. Here you go.
Yeah.
So you chose podcasting, and once again, you're excellent at it. But how do you leverage that? How would you recommend someone leverage that for personal branding?
Well, I'll take a turn here for you, but because it does not sound like it's the answer, but it is the answer. When I worked on Coca-Cola, I was in their media planning department as a media director, and at the advertising agency. And what I learned in Coca-Cola, everyone's like, they have these amazing commercials and this huge brand, and they do. They've gotten there, and they have great stories of like people used to recognize their bottles because of the shape. They're like, that's branding. Like when you can look at something and say, oh, that must be that, because they're known for that Fine, cool. But what I realized actually working on it in the weeds, which you can apply to personal branding, is that they are not a brand company. They are a distribution company. And what I mean by that is the reason they are so popular is because they are literally everywhere. They've
Mm-hmm.
figured out how to put their bottles in all the stores and all the gas stations and all the movie theaters and all the theme parks and literally everywhere you go, they are available. And if they're not available, they like in some new country that hasn't heard of Coca-Cola, they dig a well so that you can and they build the distribution system in. They hire people to ride bikes and ship bottle like they literally create the ecosystem. And you have to do that for your personal brand because at the end of the day, it's easy to like record something. It's hard to get discovered. So podcasting for me built this ecosystem. I said, okay, I can create pretty quickly now and I have an asset, but now I can turn that asset and put it everywhere. I take my recordings, I transcribe them using a great tool that called Descript that like literally I can see the words as I'm talking them. I can edit them out and I can turn that into a blog and I can hire an editor to make it a really nice blog that's good for SEO. I can turn that into little clips. I'm like, oh, when I'm reading this, let me pull snippets out and turn those into little quotables for Instagram and social media. And then I take my videos and I push them to YouTube and I have an editor cut that down. So I have the asset. It's one asset. It took me no time to create. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, don't just create more and more and more. Flip it on its head. Do 80-20 repurposing versus creating. And you've then built a distribution company.
I love it. I actually use that distribution. There's and I just taught this class like it ended last week.
I should have gone.
You don't need it. It's a social media marketing class at a university. But what I use is EA Sports created, like they redefined their company. Once again, not personal brand, but you can apply it, right? They put social media in the middle and became like a news publication, content distribution company. And that was what they focused on. And then they used social listening to be able to improve their products, change their approach, tweak what needed to be tweaked, and anticipate and look at new product development. Now, there's a lot there, but it's very similar in terms of putting the content creation and distribution in the middle of what you're doing versus off to the side as like an add-on. Because when it's off to the side, and I can tell you firsthand, it's easy not to do. It's easy to overlook it and not actually apply it.
Yeah, if you don't want to get ignored, you either have to build a media company or you have to build a experience company, one or the other at the end of the day. Because like if you think about like I gave you the Coke example, that's the media company that, you know, they've done that in their own way. But if you look at a company like Red Bull, right, everyone's like, where'd Red Bull come from? Like they suddenly got huge and like why? Yep. At the end of the day, they got popular because they started associating with events. They're like, we're the like main sponsor in person with drinks at like snowboarding competitions and alt sports and whatever else. And then they just do these random huge like stunts to get your attention. But at the end of the day, what they really did was they partnered with experiences and then they started creating their own and like hosting their own. So just like for personal brands, we do coaching workshops and retreats and trips and, you know, everything else, conferences, or one-on-one calls. Like we are creating experiences, and that's the other side of the coin.
Absolutely. I love it because it goes back to the people are getting, you know, in cannabis and CBD, we need to educate people nonstop. But how we educate people, how we show up, how we do that will also make a difference in what they engage with, what they remember, right? How many, like, I don't know about you, but I have downloaded more PDFs to read later or guides or what have you and read blog posts, but it's creating those hooks that are going to be educational, but also help them remember what you're doing. And it's being proven more and more that video helps, audio helps, adding in those other senses besides just reading words makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, and you can easily start, and people have done it. You've identified what the key events are that are associated with your industry. Obviously, like they're like retreats and meditation and yoga, like they're already out there. So how do you find the biggest one or create the biggest one, and it's yours? And people look forward to that every year. How do you become the number one this type of event in that category that just makes sense for your brand? And there's a lot of them. It's, I mean, little art, music, meditation, lifestyle, health. It's all there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now, how do you tie that in? You mentioned it earlier, but I want to reiterate it. How do
Sure.
you tie that into your personal brand?
The event part of it, the experience part of it. Yeah, yeah. For me personally, the biggest thing I do, I'm still like growing, right? So me, my business plan, top to bottom. Here's the secret, right? The big secret. My business plan is being a nice person in person. So like literally, when we had events, and we're a little bit limited now,
Right.
uh, it was like I'm gonna go to as many of these events and conferences that have my people
Yep.
as possible. I'm shaking hands, I'm getting to know people, and I'm not hiding. By the way, the podcast for me is a way to get to know people. So, like, because I have a podcast, I reached out to the speakers and I was like, "Hey, I have a show. I'd love to talk to you."
Mm-hmm.
And I interacted in their communities. I met them in person, and now I have relationships with the people running the shows and speaking on stages. So for me, my business plan is being a nice person and meeting these people in person. And the podcast makes me like not just a fan, not just a fanboy. Like I
Right.
have something to bring to the table. So that's a big part of it. That's the experience part of it, is literally an in-person thing. And then at the end of the day, after that, it's coaching. Like I'm helping people, like I'm physically having an impact in people's lives. And so that creates word of mouth and distribution from there.
I love it. And for those of you guys that don't know, I didn't mention this, but I actually met Brandon at a video conference, VidCon, last year, doing karaoke.
Okay, can I tell the story a little bit?
Yeah.
There, there, there's levels to this. I didn't even attend that conference.
Right.
I didn't. I attended a different conference. I got to know one of our mutual friends, Stephanie Liu, who, we shook hands, said hello, and she came on the show. She said she was speaking at this conference, and it's like a 40-minute drive from here. So I said, "Cool, I can't go to the conference, but how about I just meet you afterward?" And so I showed up, and I got to meet you and a few other people that were around. But that's like literally, I'm going out of my way to get to know people and add value, because it might be like, if I can not just meet you once, if I can then try to meet you another 100 times over the next few years, at some point we're going to find a way to help each other or tell someone else about each other.
Absolutely.
And that's the power of it. But you got to take those extra steps to put yourself in places around the people where you can build relationships.
Absolutely. And I think that, and especially in the cannabis and CBD space, like that network and community building and trust is so important. And I mean, for me, how I met most of my close, tight network in the cannabis industry, as I went up to LA, drove 2.5 to 5 hours, depending on traffic, to LA, and I went to a women in cannabis event. And it was free, and I was brand new, and I walked into this space not knowing anyone or anything, or if everyone was going to be high and in tie-dye or whatever. I had no idea. And that is where I met the majority of my favorite people in the industry, is
Yeah, I mean,
taking that like 2.5 hour drive up there just for this
exactly.
random free event. Like,
Yeah, I mean that's how it goes. I mean, I went to like a Malibu, like some Malibu hidden like meditation event. We had like a little booth there, and then like met someone that literally was like, "Oh, I happen to be connected and run the Malibu like retail establishment. I forget what it's called, High Tide or Malibu Tide or whatever
yeah,
it was called, but one of the retailers out here." And they're like, "We'll put your products out. We'll try your products out for a couple months." So and I'm like, that's great. Like let's do that. And it's relationships, because when you just put yourself in these places and you don't like, you're not actively seeking out people, you're there.
right.
It helps.
And it made it, yeah, and it totally does. And to your point earlier, when I went to MJ BizCon last year, just going around and talking to people at the booths, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Like, it looks like you have an interesting product and an interesting story. Let's talk about the show and if it's a good fit.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
much easier. It's easier on me. They're not looking at me like, oh my God, another marketer. Please stop with your funnels. Like, and your leads
Yeah.
you can bring me. Like, they're actually interested because it's adding value to them and not asking
Yeah.
for anything.
It's as simple as like the difference between saying, "Hey, uh, I'm Brandon and I'm a marketing guy, and do you have any marketing help you need?" Like
Right.
that's very different than saying, "Hey, I'm Brandon. I actually host a show that tells people's stories of entrepreneurship. I'd love to hear your story. You've built this nice business." You know, cool. And then they meet you and they're like, oh, what do you do? And you're like, I'm a marketing guy. They're like, oh, I need one of those. It's a different
Yep.
relationship. Or if they don't need it now, because guess what? They never need it now when you're
Right.
selling it. They might need it in 3 months or 6 months or in 2 weeks, but they never need it now. Like that's rare. So like the point is to be able to be there in a non-sleazy way when you're
Right.
building that relationship.
Right. Yeah. No one wants to be another douchebag marketer who's like, I can get you everything. Here's your leads. I'll rank you top on Google. Like, that stuff's not real.
Yeah. No, exactly. And it shows like literally I before I launched my show, I had no, I didn't know anyone that was
Yep.
like notable in the industry. So I went to the event, I Googled who the speakers were, and I reached out to all of them. I joined their lives on Instagram. I joined their groups. I
Yeah.
interacted in social. And then when I met them in person, I like found them and I actually DM'd, I sent them direct messages and said, "Hey, if you're around the conference and you have a moment, I'd love to shake your hand and say hi."
Yeah.
And then when I randomly ran into them, they don't remember these messages,
Right.
but I can refer back to them. Be like, "Hey, I'm Brandon. I actually DM'd you, said I'd love to shake your hand. Nice to meet you. And by the way, I have this show." And or maybe I wouldn't even mention it sometimes, but maybe I would. Eventually, like they see you put the attention in, and you have this clout behind. Like they're not trying to sell me something; they're just trying to get me on their show. Now you're building relationships, and those people might introduce the clients to you.
Yep.
So
That's
if you can't get in front of your clients, at least get in front of the influencers of your clients.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. We talked about creating branded content at scale, using podcasting as one option, using that authority framework. Do you have any last tips for people?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing is like try not to waste money right off the bat on things like managing your social media. Like that's kind of one of my hard pieces. I know like that pisses off a lot of my friends that are like in that job, but I think that's okay eventually. But I think when you have a limited amount of money and you're trying to figure it out, spending money on someone managing something that has no following is tough. I'd rather you spend money to either learn something from a good coach or a good like person in your space that's done it, like the business coach or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Learn something with that money, or invest in something that helps you grow, some project that helps you grow. That's like either I'm going to start a podcast. I want to learn how to do that, right? Or I need to get my email marketing figured out. I need somebody to help me do that. Or I need to like build this website. And, like figure out the next project and invest in that, or in a paid ad for the first time, because the difference between what you'll get spending $1,000 on a paid ad and $1,000 on social media management is night and day.
That's true. That's true. Although I will say that I don't recommend people running ads until they have some posts and traction on their social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because the other thing that I think that helps with is creating your voice, right? So if you're letting someone else do all your social media posts in the beginning, then unless they really understand where you're coming from, you're losing some of that control and creation of your voice as it evolves.
Yeah, and I say that again, like I have a lot of friends that do this as a job, and I say that because I've seen the other side of it, which is like I have a real estate agent here that was local that was paying 3 to 5 grand a month for management. He only had 300 followers,
It's
so
not
like no
worth it.
one's seeing that content, and they're posting pictures of like we live in a beach town. They're posting pictures of like the wrong beach, like I mean, there's good and there's bad, right?
Yeah.
This was the example of the bad. So I just think that needs to be a little more attention to where like how are you spending your marketing dollars to make sure you're growing your foundation first before you're ready to expand. So
Absolutely. I love it. Brandon, as we wrap up, you mentioned you have an offer for people. Can you tell them your offer and where they can find you?
yeah, and offer is such a harsh word, right? It's like, oh, let me stop listening now.
I know, I know, I
No,
know.
the what I wanted to
Brandon
say
has a
was,
gift.
yeah, if you want to like, this is like free. It's not like whatever. Literally, if you want to talk to me, this is my business model. Let's talk. Like if you have an idea, you're like, I'm not at that one level deeper. I know I want to be in the realm of this, but I haven't figured out my special sauce, my thing. Let's talk. Like I can probably get you there in a free call. But by the end of the call, you probably have it figured out. And if nothing else, if you're just like, I have 3 questions, I just need you to answer them and like leave me alone. Fine, I'll do that. I do that all the time for podcasters. So that's my offer is chat with me, ask me your hard questions. I will answer them. If I don't, I'll ask the experts I know, like Kendra, to help me answer them. And you'll leave a little bit with a little bit more knowledge than you had when you started. And that's at brandsonbrands.com/podcoach or coach. Both of them work.
Love it. I'll put the link below in the comments. Brandon, thank you so much for being here. Normally I have like speed round questions, but since you're not quite in the industry,
Thank you.
I'll leave it with your contact information. So I'll drop it in the comments, and you guys take Brandon up on this. He is a wealth of information. I've taken him up on this to talk about podcasting. I left the call with a page of notes and recommendations and action items of things that I will be doing between now and the end of the year. So definitely take advantage of this offer. It's worth the time for sure. Brandon, thank you so much for being here. Always great to see you, even if there's no karaoke involved.
It's gonna happen. No, I thank you. It's been a
Some-
pleasure. It's been a blast, and I will come to see you anytime to do karaoke. Anytime.
Perfect. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.